Good morning, Grantham University. Good morning, students. My name is Jose Valenzuela, and this is week 6. I'm going to do my informative speech, and I choose to talk about the Beatles. I'm going to inform you about the band and how it came together, and some other interesting facts. Um, let's start with the name of the players, the musicians of this band. We got Paul McCartney, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, and also George Harrison. We're going to start with Paul McCartney. He was born in 18 June of 1942 in England. Let's see. We also have uh, John Lennon, who was also born in England back in 1940 in Liverpool. Also a musician, singer, and songwriter who rose to worldwide fame as a founder member of the rock group of the Beatles. The third member that made this rock band was Ringo Starr, also born in England back in July 7th of 1940. And last but not least, we got George Harrison, born in 1943, also Liverpool, United Kingdom. Um, uh, this this group was formed back in 1970 in England. They started back in 1960 and stayed active and together all the way to 1970. There will never be another band like the Beatles. They not only changed rock and roll music was about, but also helped change what society was going through in the insane 60s. They should brought in a lot of changes. The Beatles first first really came about in 1955 when Paul McCartney joined up with John Lennon's band, the Quarrymen. Lennon played lead guitar. McCartney was on rhythm guitar with Stu Sutcliffe on bass and several fill-in drummers. A short time later, 13-year-old George Harrison joined them and took over the lead guitar job from Lennon. Peter Best became the regular drummer in 1960 from Lennon. Also around this time, they changed the band's name to the Silver Beatles. Then, shortly after that, to just the Beatles. They first made their mark playing clubs night after night in Hamburg, Germany. In 1961, Sutcliffe left the band and McCartney took over the bass duties. Sutcliffe did contribute to one very important thing to the Beatles' image. Um, excuse me. The long hairdo, which the rest of the band copied and would become known as the Beatle haircut or Beatle mop tops. The long do-in term would change how not only rockers, but most men, in at least in the Western world, would look for the years to come. Sadly, Sutcliffe would die of a brain hemorrhage in April of '62 before his new look caught on. After making it as the local favorite in Hamburg, they went back home. They returned to Liverpool to play it at a cavern club where they began to draw a big following. It was there in November of '61 that their soon-to-be manager Brian Epstein would first watch and play. In early '62, Epstein had him record a demo tape for Decca Records. who would turn them down, as did several other different record companies. Finally, in 1962, he found producer George Martin of EMI Records. Martin liked what he heard. He signed him to EMI's Parlophone Records. But one last change would be made. Martin didn't feel Best was a good enough drummer and wanted a session drummer to fill in for him. When they recorded, as it turned out, the other Beatles had the same feelings about Best's skills and decided to axe him in favor of another Liverpoolian drummer named Ringo Starr. His real name was Richard Starkey. The first single, Love Me Do, was recorded in September of '62. The song was written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney, sometimes almost unheard of in the rock at the time. Up until then, most rock bands only did cover songs. The song barely made the British top 20. The Beatles phenomenon didn't really kick in until Please Please Me hit number 1 on the British charts in the early '63s. The Beatles music took off like rocket after that. Their debut LP, Please Please Me, which was recorded in just one day, topped the British charts for 30 weeks. They were now the biggest rock act in the UK. Beatlemania would soon take over America and the rest of the world. I Want to Hold Your Hand their first official US release went straight to number 1 shortly after his December '63 release. After the appearance on the Ed Sullivan TV show in February of 1964, they had the top 5 best-selling singles in the US. They also had the number 1 and number 2 spots in the album charts, as well as several other entries through the top 100. No one at the time or anyone after would dominated the market for pop music like the Beatles did. Another very important thing was that they opened the door for just about every other rock band that followed them. They would continue to put out one after another number 1 hits until they break up in 1970. This concludes my informative speech. Some of the references where I got my information from was usnews.com, BeatlesBible.com, Wikipedia.org, and Kino.org, among other websites. Again, this concludes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day, and we'll see you next time.